What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with Kevole, Dilly Vanilli, and AC. We are here to break down one of the teams that's looked at as a contender in the NFC. That is the New Orleans Saints. The Saints were a high-flying team, always been a high-flying team, really, under Sean Payton with Drew Brees. And finally, they put together a full squad with a complementary defense and a running game, something that Drew Brees hadn't had in a couple of seasons since the Super Bowl run and the days of them being a consistent playoff team. This year, the New Orleans Saints made a little bit of, little changes here and there, but didn't make any significant changes. I want to hear what you guys have to say about the Saints. I know that all three of you said that Atlanta is going to be the team to challenge them for the crown of the NFC South. So I want to hear how you guys are going back and forth with Atlanta and New Orleans and how you see the Saints this year. So let's start with Dylan. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, they did make a big improvement or a big adjustment because they got Cam Meredith because, of course, he brought all the views to the channel.
Yeah, the greatest player of all time, Cam Meredith. Thank you for the support on that video, guys.
I have no idea how that blew up. Anyways, I am going to change my record or my standings, but I will talk about that at the end of my evaluation of this team. I really like what they got at receiver. Michael Thomas needs to get a little bit more respect. I know he got up here in 2017 and showed himself out, but I feel like people are still underestimating him. He's going to have a big year once again. Ted Ginn is a really good receiver. I know he's old, and I know he's been around the park and around the places, but I think he's still a very good deep threat for them. And, of course, Cameron Meredith going to be a good receiver for him. Offensive line, I think, is actually pretty solid. Andres Pete, Max Unger, obviously, is the center. Very good, strong offensive line that's going to be blocking Drew Brees. Tight end situation, they threw to Josh Hill at certain situations, and Benjamin Watson is not a bad tight end, but it's not the greatest. It's right around the middle of the pack there. I'll get to the rest of the offense in a minute. I'll go to the defensive side. Cam Jordan absolutely showed out last season. I think he's got high hopes to be Defensive Player of the Year. Will he? I don't know, but he's definitely in that conversation for sure. This defense isn't as strong as the Falcons, and I know AC will bring that up, but I think there are some good pieces here that I actually really do like. Kenny Vaccaro is out. Kirk Coleman is a good, really good safety. Marshawn Lattimore last season proved himself to be one of the better cornerbacks. Obviously, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He'll have a great second season. Marcus Williams at the free safety position. Alex Okafor at the right defensive end, I think, is very good. And Sheldon Rankins, I actually really like as well at defensive tackle. Going back to the offense, we know what Drew Brees is capable of. Right now, in my opinion, the third best QB in the league. Obviously, he can bring it out there, very accurate, knows where he wants to go to. He's not going to sit around on one particular person. He's going to spread it across the field, and that's what I like about Drew Brees. The running game, I know they're going to miss Mark Ingram for the first 4 games, but they still have a great piece in Alvin Kamara, who absolutely dominated last year and is going to make this team flashy. He's going to show everything out, and it's going to make this offense really explosive, really fun to watch. Again, they struggled a little bit in terms of 2017 to start off and then got really, really hot with that big winning streak. I think this year they'll come in a little bit stronger to start off and maybe lose some of the bigger games because this is a very difficult schedule with some very big competition. Some rivalry games like the Saints-Vikings game could be a rivalry game that we're going to talk about, but it's a strong schedule that they're going to have.
You guys heard what Kamara said about the Vikings?
What he said? Oh, did he say fuck the Vikings? I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel.
And then he said they would have beat the shit out of the Eagles.
Did he? Oh, I didn't know that one. We'll never know that. Alvin Kamara.
No, we won't.
It's confidence. I think this is a very good roster, especially offensively. The biggest thing though is that when Drew Brees was on, but he didn't have a defense, they could only go 7-9. Now that he has somewhat of a defensive support, this team is very, very good. I have them at 12-4. I'm going to put them second. I know I was going to have them a little bit higher, but I have the Rams as my number 1 seed, and now I have the Saints as my number 2 seed. I think this team is very good, a lot of offensive abilities, and I think the defense is a little underrated and will make some pretty good plays down the stretch. So I got them there, 12-4.
I got them 11-5. I do think they're going to have a great offense. I actually kind of question. We've seen some glimpses of Cameron Meredith, but for the money he got paid, he better be easily, a very good player, because that was a lot of money that he got. I kind of disagree with Ted Ginn. Yes, he always gets it done, but he is getting older, which kind of hurts. Michael Thomas is a stud. To offensively, Mark Ingram with the suspension, I think Alvin Kamara is going to be a top 3 running back this year. I think their offense is going to be unbelievable. I just still question their defense. Obviously, Cam Jordan is a Pro Bowler, and same as when we talk about Marshawn Lattimore. I do like how they brought Patrick Robinson in for their slot corner, because I think that's going to be key. I still question their linebacker depth and their linebacker skill. I think it plays well enough, but at the end of the day, I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to be a bit better just because with their defense, but I still have New Orleans in a wild card spot and finishing 11-5.
Dylan, how many times did you laugh at me last year about Sean Payton?
About 8 million.
Okay. Well,
would you like to apologize right now, Kev?
No, I'm not, because what happened here, I'll just go back to that week 1 game. Sam Bradford, 27 for 32, 346 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not Tom Brady, Sam Bradford, 27.
Oh, actually, Tom Brady threw for 400 the week after. So.
Yes, that's entire. And Dalvin Cook, 22 for 127. Adam Thielen, 9 for 157. Adrian Peterson ran for 6 for 18 yards. A couple weeks later, they decided, you know what? We should trade Adrian. He actually called me, and I said, maybe trade Adrian Peterson to the Arizona Cardinals and play more Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. And they started to turn it around. And if that game was in New Orleans, the Minnesota-New Orleans game was in New Orleans, if they win that game, I do think that they're probably in the NFC Championship game. Do they beat the Eagles? We'll never know. It never happened, so nothing to speculate there. Offensively, I think there's a lot to really like. I think Alvin Kamara, I'm very excited about what this guy can do. But the depth on this running back, even with you got Terrence West in there, Shane Vereen can do some stuff. Their offensive line, of course, is really strong. Their defense it's better, but it doesn't have to be a top 10 defense. It does, I think, have to be an upper half defense, but it doesn't have to be a top 10 defense, because Drew Brees will keep that offense on the field as long as possible. To me, the way I look at it, it's not that I thought that Sean Payton is a terrible coach. He's not, but he really did need to make some adjustments on this team, not only defensively, but even a little bit offensively about some of the things that he did, relying too much on winning games 35-34, things like that. I think we're going to see, and especially you look back at that second half, I think we're going to see a really more consistent team. I have them in the 12-4, 13-3. I have them as the number 1 seed in the NFC, and they are my pick to go to the Super Bowl. I just think that I look at this New Orleans team. I think that overall, I think that especially if they get the home field advantage, it is a tough place to play in New Orleans. Drew Brees is so comfortable there. I think this also might be a legacy year for Drew Brees, for an opportunity at second Super Bowl, an opportunity to cement his legacy. I know he's not really about that, but he doesn't get enough credit for the times that he wins games. I think in a lot of ways, he's actually been really underappreciated for the stuff that Drew Brees has done.
All right. Thank you, Kev, for that soliloquy about the New Orleans Saints. And I feel the same way. I have them as my first seed in the NFC. I have them at 13-3. I'm going to start with the defense, because that's the unit that doesn't get enough attention. I think that last year they improved a lot. But this year, I think they're going to take another jump up. I don't know if they're going to be top 10, but I definitely think they'll be a top 15 defense. I think Dennis Allen, what he did with this defense was brilliant. He just completely transformed this unit. Obviously, getting a lockdown corner, Marshawn Lattimore, was huge. And then that almost completely changed the defense. I love their additions. They brought in Patrick Robinson, who via Pro Football Focus was the first or second best slot corner in the game last year. Demario Davis was one of the most underrated signings in the NFL. I think he's a top 10 middle linebacker. So they add him to, I think AJ Klein, Monte Teo, and Robertson, they're not bad players. They all serve a role. Klein and Teo are decent in coverage. Robertson's a pretty good downhill linebacker. And Davis can stay on the field at all times pretty much. So they do have a decently deep linebacking core, although you would still probably consider that the weakness of their defense. I think the defensive line is pretty underrated, especially if they can get something out of Marcus Davenport. Obviously, they made a huge trade to get him. And if he can even come in on third down occasionally and get just a pure pass rush, that'll be nice. I like Davison and Rankins a lot at nose tackle and defensive tackle. And they have Cameron Jordan. Alex Okafor was awesome last year. Cameron Jordan, like Dylan said, defensive player of the year candidate. I think they have a lot deeper defensive line than a lot of people realize. And the secondary, Crowley is good. PJ Williams is decent. I brought up Robinson and Lattimore. Kirk Coleman, I think, is going to be underrated. He's very good in zone coverage coming from Carolina. Just a guy that has a knack for getting interceptions and making plays. Marcus Williams, obviously, we know. But Von Bell, decent. I think they have a lot of depth on this defense that's kind of flowing right under the radar. Offensively, we've talked about it. Kamara, Ingram, obviously. Zach Line's not a bad fullback. Give a shout out to the big guy. Benjamin Watson, I think, is going to actually increase their productivity at tight end if he can stay on the field. I know he's old, but last time he played there a couple of years ago, he was actually the best tight end they've had since Jimmy Graham. Josh Hill's not a bad backup. Then the offensive line, I think, is top 5 in the league. Receiver position, they drafted Traquan Smith. Maybe he could play a little bit more over Ted Ginn, but I think Cameron Meredith is going to be the number 2 with Michael Thomas. I think that's going to be a really good combo. And I think, honestly, the thing that held back this offense, I know it was like 1 or 2 in the league last year, that held back this offense from being really dynamic was having another receiver. And I think Cameron Meredith will give that to them with Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, Ted Ginn mixed in there. I think this is a very well-rounded team. And as Kevole brought up, they sort of remind me of the Patriots, as in like the last couple of years, where they don't have a defense that's like great, but if their defense can play like good, then they're going to be a team that's going to be really hard to beat, because their offense, no matter what, against any team is going to score. So it doesn't really matter. And especially if they're at home, they're going to be tough to stop. So I love the Saints this year, and they're one of my favorite teams coming in this year. 13-3, NFC, number 1 seed in the regular season. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe for more NFL and New Orleans Saints. It's Mitch, Kevole, AC, and Dylan. Peace out.